The following is a Roll Poll production. And for those who are not watching the Four Nations game right now, the championship game between the USA just scored as we're going on air. It is now 1-1 with 2:32 left to go in the first period as the United States and Canada. That was a nice goal there. It looked like Kachuk. Yeah, Kachuk scored that there. As this game has taken on a new meaning since things have happened in the world. So now it has the apparently USA versus USSR vibe to it. I don't know. It's weird. But either way, I know we have a contingency of hockey fans who pay attention. And welcome aboard. So if you're multitasking this evening, hopefully everything's going well on your end. I'm Raheli Castillo. My name is Chris Brown, Uper, and Mike. And if you don't care about anything I just said, cool too. So spring training is on the way right now as it is not just pitchers and catchers. Everybody's reporting the Tigers kick off their first game on Saturday against the Phillies, which I believe will be on television starting at 1:00. And Kenta Maeda will be taking the ball for the Tigers, and insert the 89 miles an hour, 92 mile an hour jokes there. So,
yeah, and there was actually a game today. We had the Cubs and Dodgers play today, a real live baseball game. I mean, spring training, so not that real, but some real stuff happened. I don't know if you saw that Bobby Miller took a 106 mile an hour ball to the baseball cap. I don't know if it got him in the skull, but yeah, so baseball's back with a near injury.
Oh boy,
you're gonna be wearing those big ugly hats with big padding.
Yeah, they should wear a full hockey cage if we're going to talk about hockey, right? Yeah, Gage Workman did hit a home run. It was a left-on-left home run, which he's only done once in his career, and he did it today at his first spring training game with the Cubs. Kind of funny, awesome. But good for him. It is interesting. They signed Justin Turner, but he's not a third baseman anymore. I think he played like 5 games at third last year. I think he's going to be kind of like the right-handed complement to Michael Busch at first and some DH a little bit. But with Matt Shaw there, I don't know. It feels like it's going to be tough for Workman to make the lineup, but that's a good first impression. I'll say that.
Yeah, it was one of those things where once Gage Workman figured, defensively, he was fine. Gage Workman has been a fine defensive infielder. But when you see that, you're like, oh man, like you're hoping that he catch down the Cubs. It'd be a good story. And I mean, he like I said, he has been nothing but like just going out there doing his thing. But yeah, he just hit a Tater, and his middle name is Tater. So there you go.
That's right.
That's pretty cool. I mean, the guy plays a bunch of positions, right? He can be used as a pinch runner for just about anybody. And despite the Ks, when he does make contact, he tends to hit the ball pretty damn hard. I mean, there are worse Rule 5 lists of skills than that.
No, it's a shame that he couldn't hit right-handed. If he could have done anything right-handed, I don't know if he would have gotten away. Right? It's one of those things where they could use another super utility player, but they probably need him to be right-handed, and he can't do it. He gave up on that and is now left. But like you said, it's a guy we've watched for years, and it's nice to see him have a little moment right now.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, it was a good crowd on hand too out there in Arizona today, as everybody just gets stoked for him. But yeah, baseball is back officially, and it's just good to see. And especially if you live in the Midwest right now with all the snow and winter crap that's going on, it's below. Actually, I think in Michigan, it's been below normal. I think it's like supposed to be 35, 40 right now. It's 16 out there. It's just it sucks.
Well, there's just been a void of any organized sports. NBA and NHL are both off right now. So baseball starting right now is kind of perfect. I was just like, oh man, this is what's been missing.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as Ashley goes this evening, I don't think she'll be joining us this evening. So just as a programming note, more than likely she'll be joining us during the regular season quite a bit, but right now during the off season, I have to give her a shout out. She got into the Sabre conference. She'll be presenting at the Sabre conference come up in Arizona, in a few weeks. So congratulations to her. She's been really working her ass off.
She was hoping for that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
So yeah, that's really cool. And so she got a new microphone too. So she's actually, I'm like, hey, do you mind getting your mic? Boom, done.
Nice.
They didn't even hesitate. So, but yeah, Ashley will be joining us more towards the regular season. Like I said, it's just trying to make sure the schedule. A lot of this, like I said, with 4 people on, sometimes you get the 5th voice, and so. But either way, she'll be there. Also coming up, I do want to talk about the whole Vladimir Jr. Not coming. So there was the suggestion by Woodward Sports. Again, this was just the engagement, and I don't blame him. You do what you got to do, but Toronto and Vladimir did not come to an agreement. So basically, he's going to be a free agent come November, and of course, you have the New York media just saying, "Hey, here we go. He's going to be a future Yankee, future Met." But the trade suggestion was it was interesting, and I say that quotations. The trade proposal was Vladimir Guerrero for Kevin McGonigal, Hyu Lee, Colt Keith,
and Melton.
Yeah,
and Troy Melton.
Troy Melton.
Yeah, I mean that would get you Vlad Guerrero Jr. If that's the goal, then yes, you would get him. The issue there, of course, is he's in his final year. He's making $28 million this year, and you're going to have to extend him for probably 14 years. I don't know, 12 years. You'd have to pay him. He's going to want Juan Soto money. He's not going to get it, but he might get $400-500 million, right? Like he's going to be 26. His numbers are fairly close to what Miguel Cabrera's were at the same age. He's going to get paid.
And, well, that's what I was going to.
And you have to pay a premium to get him to sign early.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, you got to compare Miggy's deal because that's like a comparable thing. And back in 2016, he got 8 years, $248 million. So you put that in today's baseball terms, 9 years, 10 years, really, when the extension goes into effect.
Well, and that was old man Cabrera. The first one was, I think they got him with 2 years left when they originally traded for him. I think, and then they extended him for, was it 160 million, something like that?
I thought
152, 300.
153, yeah.
And they did give up a boatload of prospects, including like 2 top 10 prospects at the time. But again, that's what you can get with 2 years. Yeah. It's different than 1 year for whatever it's worth. You look at the Juan Soto trade just a couple of years ago from Washington to San Diego, and what what San Diego gave up in that deal was pretty remarkable.
How would you react if they asked you to DH? How would you feel about that?
No.
Can you translate that, please?
One of the best pieces of audio we've had on the board in a while. That was Rafael Devers saying basically no to the idea of playing first base or DH. We'll get to that a little bit later too.
There's some weird stuff going on in the Red Sox locker room.
Yeah, that is. And then between was it Tristan? There's a video earlier of them doing like slide drills, but it looked like they were going down a slip and slide. But then, it just seems like they're saying that Tristan Campbell's not ready. One of the players, I forgot who said it, that was saying
Tristan Casas said that he doesn't want Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell on the team.
Yeah,
not yet. I don't know. It's weird. Like we were saying last week, sometimes we want these players to speak their mind, but then when they do, it just causes all sorts of problems.
Exactly. Then you say you have some wise old guys in this locker room or something?
Something like that, yeah. And Devers is the best third baseman in baseball. It's like, all right, well.
He's a third base. He's really good.
He plays third base.
It's a whole interesting thing there with that. But by the way, for those who have donated to our GoFundMe, thank you. It looks like unless a miracle happens here in the next couple of weeks, spring training is not a possibility at this point right now. I would like it to be, but things are tough around, and I totally understand. So I would like to be there for the prospect breakout game. That'd be awesome. But as I said, as of right now, it doesn't look. I mean, we have money for the season right now. That's great, but it's just things are the way they are, and it's okay. No big deal. It is just want to give everybody a heads up because somebody was asking us about going to spring training, and right now it's just kind of looking tough right now. We have a goal in mind with that, but it's like I said, if we don't hit it, it is what it is. So let's get to Jackson Joe, shall we? Because I want to cheer up the mood of the show here. So this is Jackson Joe versus Chase Young. And there is and this is with Chris Dillage watching, as Steve mentioned earlier on our chat. So, and there you can see their heads like right at the bottom of the screens there.
Yeah, this is Evan Petzold.
Yeah,
took this
Evan
video,
Petzold.
I think. Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
There was Beck has another one on Blue Sky that's in slow motion.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
But
the one from ground level where you can see that curveball really is something.
Yeah, the Tigers put one out too, right? They tweeted out. You can see. Yeah, it's you know, the fact that the Tigers are hyping up Jackson Jobe right now tells you probably that doesn't tell you, but like, yeah, they want him to be on the opening day roster for sure, right? Like,
yeah,
you know, we'll discuss that in a little bit, but if he's getting hype right now, yeah, that's a good sign for him.
Yeah, don't want to waste bullets. Woo.
One thing,
go ahead.
If we get to see that curveball from the ground level one that they released, as someone who gets behind the plate and watches youthful amateurs throw lollipop curveballs, and when you see a good curveball, you're actually a little bit stunned. Okay. That curveball to me, whenever I see a good curveball, I just feel like the seams are chewing up the air as it's coming at you. You know, I mean, it's really grinding coming in there with a sharp break, and that's what that thing looked like. You know, that's pretty cool. Instead of the lollipops, I see a lot of 14-year-olds throw in there.
Well, I mean, we were kind of tipped off to this a little bit just by watching some of his bullpen footage. That was I forgot that it was a place in Oklahoma or whatever that released a little bit, and we're like, hey, that looks like a traditional curveball. And then there was some reporting that he actually is, and today was the first time some of the beat writers actually saw it, and Chris McCoskey said it was just nasty, and he used the word oof as a hard downer curve. I think it'll be a big deal for him if he has that playing off the four-seamer. That's going to be really helpful, and it also sounds like he's developed a sinker this year too. So I don't know. One of the things we talk about with him is just how impressive his aptitude and ability to adapt has been. And yeah, if he's got a couple more pitches, that's not very fair.
All right, so I did find that video. I did find the other video because
the Tigers one.
The Tigers one is a really, really, really good one. So I'll pull that up while you guys are continuing to talk here.
Yeah, it's you got the upper 90s fastball, the nasty changeup. You got the sweeper that he still has. That if he breaks it out every now and then, it'll be more effective. Yeah. You see some arm side run there, and there's a fastball away.
Boom!
Ooh, there it is.
Yep. Jake Rogers calling strike.
Yep. That's another good pitch right there.
Tight.
Yeah.
Get out of the way.
Yeah.
There's another downer. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so it's
And so one of the things I wanted to mention too that like we noticed last year in Erie was he got the umps were a little. There was a weird ass strike zone last year going on with him where those pitches, for whatever reason, were not called. They were called the ball. Like some of those pitches that he was getting on the inside part of the plate, he was getting squeezed. There was a lot of bad umping last year in the Eastern League, and I was talking about this with Greg Gagna, the voice of the Seawolves, and Chris. I mean, we remember there was a couple times too during a game. I mean, it was a particular game against Portland, where I think he was. It was on the road in Portland, or Portland was in Erie. I can't remember. But there was a couple pitches where he was just getting, like, you could tell he was just really getting frustrated.
Yeah, and there were a few games where the light cost him. He couldn't put the batters away, in part because he wasn't getting help from the umps, and it's understandable. This is AA hitters can't face the best breaking balls, and presumably AA umpires and aren't necessarily going to be big league umpires who can handle calling strikes on those pitches. But
they had no ABS in AA, did they?
Nope. Only low A and triple A.
Okay.
Now the problem is that they have basically the technology in the dugouts. They have that so they can see instantly if it was actually a strike or not, and that just it's not good for the umpires
No.
because the dugouts start chirping and they don't they're doing their best, and it's like now they're second guessing themselves and not free and easy. That's who was it? Don Welke, Tim Welke, one of the Welkes was out there in West Michigan. He's kind of goes around for Major League Baseball looking at umpires. He's basically like a roving umpire instructor. And he was talking about how it's been terrible for the umps, but whatever.
Well, that kind of goes into something I was reading. I don't know if you guys saw the article in The Athletic by Jason Stark about the ABS and how they're going to be testing it this spring. I'm going to be really focused on those. Are going to be interesting games to see how the big leaguers like using it. If you get a chance to read the article, people who can, if they're subscribers to The Athletic, a couple of cool things he talked about was evidently they found out in AAA that the pitchers are absolutely the worst judges of when to challenge of all three who can, catchers, hitters, and pitchers. There's a few teams that actually barred their pitchers from doing the challenge because they all want strikes. And some of them who land off balance, they have kind of a poor view, it turns out, So they're relying on their catcher to challenge far more often, and it's more effective. And then the other cool thing I noticed there in the article was pitching coaches are really instructing their catchers, if there's anything close when it's a 0-0 count, challenge that pitch, because the difference between a 1-0 start to the count and 0-1 start is massive in terms of batting average. So that'll be something for us to watch this year, is how often do we see 0-0 count challenges?
And who's going to be really annoying with this is Stephen Kwan. And there was somebody that mentioned that on Twitter. And as soon as I said that, I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Well,
you know how many times Stephen Kwan's going to challenge that?
Well, I want to say that Kwan actually got more balls called strikes against him last year than just about anybody else in baseball. I feel like he did. I'm not sure why, but yeah, it's that 0-1, that doing it early was kind of counterintuitive. I remember early last year that managers were telling, at least in low A, they were telling their players not to use them early in counts and not to use them early in games. But it does make sense. Like, that's a huge difference in the count. People just feel like they need to save them until they're about to get struck out. And there have been some really fun instances over the last couple of years where I remember one in particular, Parker Meadows got called out on strikes and he challenged and he was right, and then hit a home run on the next pitch. It was like, that's fun. And some of these hitters have spectacular eyes. Jace Young typically wins his challenges, and Malloy would probably win them. And so yeah, the hitters and the catchers are pretty good at it too. Yeah, but I don't remember many pitchers succeeding. Yeah, they usually they don't have the eye for it.
Here's the thing. They're going to have two challenges. The AAA baseball I watched last year, I did not feel those challenges were really obtrusive on the experience of watching the game, and they were pretty damn fast. And I would actually be open, even as an umpire, who I would rather see human umpires, but I don't have a problem with the challenge system either. I would actually go with more than two. I would even go crazy. I would go one per inning, and you don't lose it until you're wrong. Because why not? It would not add much time to the game. And I just think it's silly in the ninth inning, someone's out of challenges. I know there's strategy to it and tactics and the whole thing, but if you want this to work, you want to get pitches right, I would go one per inning. But
call me crazy. Oh, go ahead, Chris.
No, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was just going to say, I feel like I'm on an island here, but you just brought up it's not going to make the game that much longer. Baseball games are now too short. You go into a baseball game to view as a fan, it doesn't even feel worth it. I wait in line for one beer. I gotta go find my seat, go grab a beer, and when I sit back down, it's the start of the third inning. Go to the bathroom, come back with another drink. Oh my God, it's the seventh inning. Like, baseball games are fast. I have no problem with that. I also just feel like this is one step down the road towards Blurns ball. I don't know if that's a reference anybody gets, but robot umps is that first step. That's what I've always said. I'm just like, Futurama was right. Just like Simpsons always predicted everything. It's just, this is hundreds of years down the line, but I don't know. I feel like there's an old man feeling in me that I just hate it. without any logic whatsoever. Like seeing it is just like, oh, that's not how it's supposed to be. But I think like really when you sit down and think about it, I think it makes sense. It's only a matter of time. I don't think it's if, it's when, really, is how I look at it at this point.
I really don't think it makes it like watching games in Toledo. I don't think the only time there was a really long game, I remember, what was it, Chris? There was like the 4-hour game where we were sitting there.
It was cold.
It was cold, and it was like the third inning. We're like, it was like 2 hours in. It was like the third. I don't remember if it was a long ass game. I don't remember what it was, but it had nothing to do with the instant replay. It was just a really tedious game.
I think in the minors they had 5 or 6 challenges a team, and I don't ever remember it taking long at all. Yeah. Like it was really quick, and that's my main thing. Like I the human element. Okay, you keep some of that in the game, right? But like if you can get something right, I feel like you should try, unless it takes too long. And you see that in football, instant replay, and NBA or basketball is the worst. They will spend like 4 minutes trying to figure out
my God,
whose finger a ball went off in the final. And like,
why did they get those tiny screens and we all get it on the Jumbotron? And
they need to do something about that. They need to get rid of that. They need to, or have a rule where like, whoever, like, because it'll be somebody who will knock the ball. Like they're playing defense, they're trying to hit the ball, they hit it, and then it glances off somebody's fingernail, and then they get it's like, just whoever is trying to knock it out, it's off them. But I mean, baseball has not been like that from what I've seen so far. These challenges are relatively quick, and they're kind of entertaining to look at. The fans get to look on the screen and see how close it is, and they go, oh, and then you move on. And I think it'll be fun. I know I think Hinch talked about like having guys do it early in the spring, but not wanting them to try it later. Basically taking it off. You can't challenge us later because we don't want you to try to do that in the regular season. But it does feel like this is kind of the final testing ground before they institute it either next year or the following year.
Yeah. Stark was saying they might want to wait till after the CBA.
Yeah. Dude, I went to a Pistons game a few weeks ago with my brothers, and it was exactly that, Chris. It was a call where it was out of bounds, and it took about 6 minutes. 6 minutes. I mean, that doesn't sound like it doesn't sound like a lot per se. But it is, especially in a live event. Well, I was saying something to my brother about it, and he's like, I don't know, it's that long. I'm like, 6 minutes is a long ass time.
6 minutes stoppage where nothing is happening except one play's reviewed. Like any sport, if it goes on more than 1 to 2 minutes, I'm like, what the hell's going on here?
Yeah, it shouldn't. Anything more than 30, 45 seconds is
How many cameras do they have? There's so many angles. There's 5. There's more than 5. I'm underselling it. I'm sorry. This is I love basketball, and you're so right. It's just you can get into a game and then they review a play in a tense situation and all the tension's gone. Now you're just like, come on. It's so different.
Yeah. And then there's 10 minutes of fouling. But yeah, I don't know. I'm intrigued to see how they handle these in spring. And I think it'll be for a lot of people, it'll be the first time they've seen it, and it'll be interesting to hear their opinions. I know some baseball purists don't like it. Clinton Yates doesn't like it. But I don't know. I feel like it's a good thing. It's instant replay in baseball is a good thing.
Yeah.
Like the 3-0 the 3-0 old automatic isn't going to be that way anymore. If you challenge that pitch, you can probably get it. It's not going to give the umpires give you a strike a lot of times if you're 2 inches off the plate on 3-0. Robot doesn't care. So that'll change the game a little bit. And they were also pointing out how, umpires, the strike zone tends to be more oval, and the ABS, it's a rectangle, and there are going to be more strikes on the upper and lower corners than we tend to see with human umpires.
Yeah, and there were definitely impacts from the full automatic strike zone in AAA that they did not foresee coming, and they did not like. There were a lot of and you could tell that hitters it particularly seemed to affect pitchers, hitters seem to figure it out pretty quickly and just lay off anything that was borderline. In pitchers, their walk rate skyrocketed, and we saw people like Ty Madden putting up 7 ERAs and stuff like that because it's hard to keep those innings from steamrolling on you. But I don't know. I think a limited use of it in some capacity. I think more than 2, maybe less than 6, but they'll figure it out.
Yeah, and I think that one of the things about spring training that does help the extended long period, like unlike you don't see this very often in football either, where a lot of experimentation of rules because you only have 4 games to really get it right. But with baseball, of course, you can have more than 20 to get that right. So I think it's going to be fine. I think it's the same thing when everybody kind of freaked out about the rule changes, about the bigger bases, what have you. I think once people see it in action a couple of times, like, oh, all right, it's seamless. I mean, if you watch enough AAA games, like we have, then yeah. So.
And then remember in the Arizona Fall League, they had check swing challenges. That was interesting. We'll see if that comes along in a couple of years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I like what Tim Palmer said here. People say that baseball is boring and have never watched the NBA. Amen to that.
They're 2 completely different things.
Yeah,
you don't compare baseball to football either.
So Jobe wasn't the only player on the Tigers that has, Casey Mize has apparently added 2 different sliders. I think Evan Petzold reported that, trying to find something to get him swings and misses with a breaking ball. One of them is like a sweeper, and I don't really sure what the other one is, but we'll see. It feels weird to think that Casey Mize might be pitching out of the bullpen or might be pitching in Toledo.
Yeah.
But that seems like a real possibility. I don't know.
He's supposed to pitch game 2 of spring training on Sunday. He's supposed to pitch Sunday.
Yeah, so I mean that's another one to keep watching this year. Like I don't know. It's we were going to talk about, I think, kind of the roster projections. It's kind of hard to figure who's going to come out of there. Obviously, I think the injury or 2 will probably make it a little bit easier, but it's still the way I looked at it. I had I think 18 roster spots that I considered locks, and then. And that may be a little low. I had like McKinstry and Ibanez not necessarily as locks, but I think they probably are. So there's like 5 or 6 roster spots up for grabs.
I would say out of those 2, I would say for sure one of them will be there.
Yeah,
I mean, almost no doubt. Whether they're both, maybe up in the air, but I think you're right. I think they'll both be there.
I'll tell you this much: if you're and Manning's supposed to also pitch Sunday, is I believe Sunday or maybe Saturday.
I think he's after Maeda.
Okay, so here, if just because I said this earlier on Twitter or X or whatever, that I think all 4 affiliates might have a chance to make the postseason. If the Tigers don't make a move here, like for example, treating Manning or Mize or whatever before spring training begins, and you have a rotation down in Toledo of Manning, Mize, or even Montero, who's been somebody was telling me that he's been working on a 2-seamer. And and you have Sawyer Gibson Long coming back to at some point in mid-May, probably coming back from Tommy John, if not sooner than that. You have a pretty deep rotation / bullpen in Toledo. And by the way, we're going to be doing a new thing this year. We're going to do the top 10, top 5 relievers because the Tigers have so many relievers in their system. We're going to be doing like a rankings list on the minor league side of things. So, but I look at it this way. I feel like maybe getting them work early on will help them maybe to see really assess what they have. I don't think, are they going to put them out there to be traded? I don't know. Somebody, Nick, who's a regular listener to the show, mentioned the Angels as a trade destination. And we're not doing the, what if they trade thing, but it was interesting to think about it that way with their current offensive situation. And the Angels did do some stuff for free agency, but they didn't really do a lot of pitching free agent pickups. So I don't know. With Jobe, you have Montero there. You have Brandon Herter. There's just a lot of guys in the camp that you could make a case. You could make a case for to make the team.
Yeah, one of the things we kind of touched on a little bit last week is the number of guys who still have options. And that's something that I felt that we've seen for the last few years is they kind of err on the side of just keeping the guys who they would lose otherwise.
Yeah.
And now there aren't a ton of them, but it makes me feel like, they will hold on to McKinstry. And I think Ibanez actually has another option, even though he's 32.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're going to hold on to those guys, and then they don't have I think they're going to hold on to Maeda rather than, just cut him and, use some of the young guys, because they can just stash the younger guys in Toledo. I don't think they care that much about that. They know they'll need them over the course of the season, and I think they communicate to the players pretty well. And so I don't know, like it's hard to figure how it's going to, all connect, but that's AJ Hinch's job, I think. So
we looked it up last week. Wenzel Perez had an option left, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he has 2 left.
2 left.
Yes.
So yeah, that might not bode well for him for opening day wise.
Yeah. But I don't know if we want to actually go into that a little bit. I was going to talk a little bit about, one of the things we heard was that Kerry Carpenter might get more chances against left-handed pitching, which is what everybody wanted for, right?
Yeah, Jerry wrote a really good piece about that today on Tiger Money Report about the power numbers he had last year and him being in rare company. And look, if Kerry Carpenter's back's healthy, put him against lefties. By all means, go for it. Or another name that it's coming to my mind right now. We'll have to bring him up at some point too, because Mike, he's behind Mike right now. It's Hayu Lee, who's been a big hit in the camp. But we'll bring up Hayu Lee too, because just the revelation of Hayu Lee, and Chris and I had a inside joke a couple days ago about it, because Uper and Mike have both been privy to the fact that we've been talking about Hayu Lee for about a solid year now.
Yes.
He's been really good for a long time, ladies and gentlemen.
Sometimes it just takes a whole bunch of people to kind of recognize at the same time for some reason. But yeah, that was interesting. I don't know. We hear, some people got to see him in camp, and they're like, hey, this is kind of impressive. And then John Morosi is talking about it. And we know that Scott Harris isn't shy about telling people that he thinks Hayu Lee is really good. And I'm sure those guys are hearing that, and they're reporting that. And so there's a little bit of like camp hype. We were talking in the Discord, I think around this time last year, the camp hype before the game started was for Brant Herter and Justice Bigby.
Yeah.
And one good, one bad.
Yeah,
and then Eddie's Leonard had a really good spring, and so people were talking about him, but I don't think we got the kind of the media driven hype around him at all. It was just kind of like, hey, he's hitting well.
Kreidler had a big spring too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is it's been fun to see that, and they're talking about, it sure sounds like he's going to start in Toledo, which is good. We thought he probably would, but he's still young enough that it not necessarily. And there's a lot of positive momentum for him there. So who knows? Maybe he'll be their third baseman by the trade deadline.
Yeah, I mean, again, I said this last week, and I'll say it again. I still think he's more than capable of playing the position. He has the ability. Can you hear me? Okay,
yeah.
Thank you. Oh no, so like you're doing.
It's a little quiet. That's all.
Oh, okay, all right. There we go. I'm projecting my voice a little better. He can play the position just fine. I really think that he's more than capable of hitting, and a really good job here by Jason on X explaining. And Jason at Trashman, he spells it really weird, mentioned how his mechanics, because his dad played baseball, was talking about his mechanics, Jace Young's mechanics going from second to third, and how they were similar, and that's probably why he struggled a little last year. And I didn't think about that. We don't think about the throw from third to first. Of course, we all know it's longer, but there's different mechanics to it. And so he was mentioning that, and how Hayu Lee's already been doing that already. So Jace Young's also named watching camp too, because he's healthy. He can hit the ball. He's still a very, I think he's going to be an effective infielder. Where is the question?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's another guy that they probably would like to bring with them, but it's tough because of the number of lefties on the team and the defensive question marks. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy that certainly has power and patience, and those are two things that could help you win. I'm a little bit suspicious about the hitting ability, and the defense is no good, but we'll see what happens over the course of the spring.
Well, will Gleyber Torres do his Rafael Devers imitation if he's asked to move somewhere.
No.
How would you react if they asked you to DH? How would you feel about that?
No.
No. Why does he sound like Leonis Martin? No. Yeah. So I don't know. It'll be fun watching How You Lee. Hopefully he'll get some starts and get some reps against legit big league pitching. And same with Young. We saw a little bit last year, but he's going to need some more. And I don't know. I'd like to see Carpenter get those swings against lefties. I think platoon issues kind of crack me up in a way, because like we're talking about athletes with the 99.9th percentile hand-eye coordination on the planet, right? Like they can hit 102 mile an hour fastball. They can hit a curveball that drops 6 feet. They can Pete Alonso hit a Devin Williams airbender 370 feet the opposite way for a home run. Like these guys are amazing, unless you throw with the wrong hand, and then they're screwed. Right. Like I don't know. Nothing I can do. It came out of the other hand, and it's like what's going on here? And I understand that there's if there's line of sight thing, you're trying to pick up release points, and to a certain extent, we know that these guys are so good that if they see that release point enough, they're gonna be able to do damage, right? They're picking up the ball, but that's why guys with funky arm angles have success, because you only see them once, and the hitters just aren't expecting the ball to come from this spot and land there. Their hand in their brain can't figure it out yet, and it's just. And so you feel like, hey, just do it more and it's going to work. But we know that that's not necessarily the case, right? There's hundreds of years, or more than 100 years of evidence to show that sometimes lefties just can't hit left-handed pitching. And I just wonder if more guys should just fiddle around in the box. I know hitters really like to stay consistent, but what if you just put on some wearable tech, and you go in there and you take 6 swings, and then you move your head 4 degrees, right? Move your eyes, change where you're going, or change your batting stance completely. I know guys don't do that, but there are switch hitters out there. Why couldn't a lefty have a completely different stance for a left-handed batter or a left-handed pitcher and right-handed pitcher? Sure. Maybe some guys do it. It just I don't know. I feel like there's got to be some way to overcome this. And maybe it's just because breaking balls are harder to hit when they're going away from you than they are coming toward you. But I don't know. It feels kind of weird to me that there's some guys that just can't do it.
Well, I looked up a lot of stuff on Kerry Carpenter. I wanted to look out in his career how he's done minors and majors against lefties.
He was fine in the minors. Very good.
He was better against lefties than righties in 2021, actually. Yeah. I mean, he had a little less power, but he hit for more average, and he got on base more. And in 2022, he just went on a tear against lefties and righties, because he had over a 900 OPS against lefties. Of course, in 104 plate appearances in 2022 across AA, AAA, and the majors. But it was right there. And then 2023 is when they were like, we're going to purposely not get you against really any lefties. He had 81 plate appearances, and then obviously with the injury last year, he only had 29 plate appearances. But I feel like if you're not consistently getting those at bats, I just feel like you can't get any better. So what I'm worried about in this situation is if they do start out with this at first, he may struggle at first. I don't think he's necessarily going it doesn't mean he can't do it, but it's just I'm worried how fans will see it, because it's clear he needs to work at it, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility.
It's going to be real interesting to me. Let's say he has a relatively good spring against left-hand batters, and Hinch decides, hey, he's going to get some at bats. How many plate appearances would they devote to him batting left-handed before they revert to some kind of platoon and go back to what they were winning with last year, which was him taking that night off and coming in late in the game in a targeted situation, which is nothing wrong with that. But certainly I join the chorus. I would like to see him get that opportunity. And wins in April, though, are just as good as wins in August and September. So they can't give away games because of it. But if he's struggling that badly, but I just wonder how many at bats they'd go before they call that experiment off.
Well, I would also think his back health is the number one factor right now. I mean, if his back is even 80%, that's going to make a big difference in how many at bats he's really going to get. Because, I mean, of course, he's had the entire offseason to rest up and everything. But as we know, time and time again, the cliche on the show is bad back is a bad back. And it's just one of those things where if it all depends on his health. And look, if he's healthy and he's doing what he's going to do against lefties and righties, it just makes the Tigers a much better team. Simple as that. I mean, it gives them also in a good way, it forces them to reevaluate what they have with Winseal and Malloy. It limits those guys' plate appearances, because if Kerry Carpenter is doing it on both sides, you don't need the platoon anymore. So that there's a trickle down effect with that.
Yeah, I mean, Hinch he had some comments about it, and he said, he's been trying to tell everybody it's not about Kerry Carpenter, it's about the advantages he can get with the other hitters, right? Mm-hmm. And I do think, and I don't want to overblow this, but we saw it all year last year that Hinch really does treat it kind of like chess. Like he will happily, if he can get some guys out of the other team's bullpen in some way and give himself a favorable matchup later in the game, he'll do it. And he talked about, he wonders if teams might start targeting Kerry Carpenter earlier in the game with lefties. And if that's the case, he'll leave Carpenter in just to get that lefty reliever out of there. And then Carpenter has a better chance later, or they can pinch hit for him later. So that might be what we see. If teams bring in a lefty to face Carpenter in like the 5th or 6th inning, he might leave him in there. And then, 8th or 9th comes around and he pinch hits for him or something like that. But I'm all for giving him more opportunities, but I also understand why Hinch has done what he's done. This is a close to average major league offense, and any kind of advantage you can get in any plate appearance is going to give you a better chance to win.
And there's something to be said too. I mean, if let's say all he does, and then I use all in air quotes, right? All he does is rip the hell out of right-handed pitching and nothing else. That's still pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, they can make that work.
Yeah. There's a lot of righties out there.
Especially in a division where, I mean, if I think about I'm trying to think of like dominant lefties in the AL Central.
Well, there may be some down the road.
Chicago.
But I can't think of a ton right now.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the Guardians projected rotation right now,
Matthew Boyd's gone.
Yeah, it's all righties. It's Tanner Bibby, Lively, Williams, Gavin Williams, who's really good anyway, but. And then if you go to the Royals, I think
they have Cole Reagans.
Yeah, I was gonna say Cole Reagans, and they have what's his face, Chris Bubich.
Yeah, is he?
He's a lefty.
Was he healthy?
Oh, probably not.
He missed most of last year, I thought.
And then if you look at the White Sox, who, I mean, they have Martin Perez. That's really about it. But then it's all rookie right-hander, or it's a kind of a younger staff. And then as far as the Twins go, lefty wise, they don't have any lefties at all. It's Lopez, Ryan, Ober, Woods, Richardson, and Chris Paddock. So
and Zebby Matthews.
Chris
Bubik.
Easy.
He.
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, sorry, I was just mumbling about Chris Bubich. He was. I didn't realize he was just fully relief last year, but only for 30 innings.
I can't believe I don't know. That's crazy. There really isn't that many good lefties, is there?
Yeah, Twins have the only left they do have is Danny
Colombe.
That's it.
They just added him.
Yep, they just added him. I mean, he was the only. Other than that, they had no lefties. And then if you want to even get even more deeper dive into the Twins bullpen, or on their 40-man, they have two guys. They have one guy in their 40-man right now. Cody Funderburk is the other lefty on their 40-man roster, and then they have Anthony Meswick as a non-roster invite, who they picked up from the Yankees as a lefty. That's it. So,
yeah, but the White Sox will have Hagen Smith and Noah Schultz
soon
down the road. But I don't know. It's kind of funny thinking about it. Unfortunately, not unfortunately, but it's not like the super unbalanced schedule anymore. So you're not going to face a ton of these guys.
Yeah. And again, the biggest thing about, we'll move on here to, are we doing roster projections? Is that what we're doing this evening?
Yeah, we can. We can. You want to touch on the ESPN thing too? I don't know.
I do want to talk about that a little bit, because it is but also because Amazon Prime people, for those who have Amazon Prime. Now, if you have the FanDuel Sports Network, you can watch Piston games, Tiger games, and Red Wing games for $19.99. So it's under the Amazon Prime. So for those, but Chris showed me a site that I will never ever. It's beautiful. I know I've never had an issue with it either, not one time.
Nice.
So, but no, and the reason why I wanted to mention this too is because ESPN right now has had issues with hockey ratings, I believe, as well. So MLB and ESPN parting ways seems a little. MLB has been part of ESPN since. It's been like since we were,
early 90s.
Yeah, the early 90s. And
even late 80s. I mean, Baseball Tonight was huge.
And the league cites it because of, quote, minimal coverage. And so I guess Rob Manfred has been saying that he has not been pleased with the minimal coverage yet MLB has received on ESPN platforms over the past several years outside of their actual live game coverage, end quote. And ESPN has been reported to ask for MLB to take the lower rights fee than the $550 million average value of the existing deal. And baseball basically was like, nah, dude, we're good. Since 1990, actually, So,
yep.
And given that MLB provides strong viewership, value demographics, and exclusive right to cover unique events like the Home Run Derby, ESPN's demand to reduce rights is simply unacceptable. So that was a public statement. That was releasing a public statement. Look, the Home Run Derby, some of the MLB has not made these things exciting either. I mean, what, you can blame ESPN for that? I don't know. I mean, am I being? But then again, also Sunday Night Baseball, you show the same three teams over and over again.
That's what it is. They didn't talk about baseball unless it was the Yankees or the Dodgers, and that's all ESPN did. That's kind of what they do with really every sport. New York and LA, they hyper focus on those. So yeah, ESPN. It didn't matter what your team did if you're outside of New York, LA. It doesn't matter what sport. Baseball was especially bad. I don't disagree with anything MLB said, but where are they going to go? Is it just going to be all these streaming sites? Is it going to be Amazon? They're going to split up with like Amazon Peacock, Apple,
Probably.
And then at this point, it's like those places are not fully committed to sports either. What I don't like about this is it's diminishing the quality of telecasts. Amazon Prime doesn't have great, like none of the streaming services have great production values. They're not fully all in. They don't have real sportscasters. They don't have it just feels like they're not fully committed to it. They just want the money for it. So I'm worried that the quality is going to dip. I'm not saying ESPN was perfect. I just mean that this could be the first domino to just be like, well, they're not going to really put that much effort into it because all people really care about is that it's on. And I don't know. That's what I worry about with something like this.
I wonder if TNT is going to jump into it harder than they have.
Yeah, I think TNT. I mean, I just watched a documentary on the Dream Team that TNT did for Max on Grant. Oh, by the way, it was just Grant Hill saying that they beat the Dream Team in a practice game or a game in practice. And I have a lot of issues with that documentary, but I'm not gonna. I digress. Just only because Grant Hill did not mention now one time showed him as a Piston jersey at all, even though he played a significant part of his career there. And B, it was just a lot. It's just I don't know. Anyway, no, but I feel like with ESPN, they used to have John Miller, they used to have Joe Morgan, they had some really big names on there, and back when. Even the 90s, everybody like growing up, it was. I mean, Carl Ravitch is good. I think Carl Ravitch is great. I think he's good at what they do. But ESPN has tried to be too much for. ESPN has kind of. I don't really watch ESPN. To be honest with you, I don't really. I don't watch SportsCenter anymore. No. If it's not Sports Century, if it's not something historically related, I don't care.
Honestly. that's just the changing media landscape, really. I mean, like when we were growing up, that was the place to see sports highlights.
Mhm.
And then what happened is ESPN kept getting bigger and bigger, and then they started getting official deals. And I remember, their hockey coverage used to be great, and then they stopped showing hockey games, and so they stopped covering hockey basically altogether. They mentioned it a little bit.
They were like, "Fine, we're not gonna cover it." Nah.
And then now they have NFL games, so they're talking NFL all the time.
Oh, they love the NFL. Yeah.
They had SEC football, so that became like they didn't talk about the Big Ten as much and stuff like that. It's just the nature of the business now. And for us, I mean, for fans, you can see highlights anywhere, anytime you want. MLB Network is great. It's like they'll just be talking about baseball all night, and so I mean, it I don't know, for ESPN, I'm sure it doesn't make a ton of money. And so I'm not surprised that there's this kind of breakup, but it's just another one of those kind of sad, there goes your childhood sort of things. It's like, this is not coming back. The baseball will get through this somehow, but it's going to be different.
Yeah. Then you get people going to come back and say the classic, well, baseball's a regional sport. This is why ESPN's doing that. That's coming. But I have an idea. I have a revolutionary idea to fix all this baseball stuff. Ready?
Go.
Get rid of the damn blackouts. What a concept, right? Get rid of the blackouts. Get rid of the, you know what? That's the one thing that, like, just if Rob Manfred was like, hey guys, we're getting rid of the blackouts, everybody would just wants that. You were living in Iowa, wants to watch a damn team right now, and he can't do it. It's ridiculous. Get rid of the blackouts. A-okay. That's it. Just do that. Just do something as simple as that. Will go a long effing way. Because I'm so, that is the one thing that's frustrating about this game is, in OBK, you're absolutely right. MLB is not a hot broadcast commodity. Clearly, it's not. It's not. I don't want to say it's like NASCAR, because NASCAR used to be a big thing. Now all of a sudden NASCAR has fallen by the wayside too. But MLB, you make it hard. What MLB does, it makes it hard for people to watch because they don't market the marketing and all that stuff. I can go on and on about that too, but making the games easy to watch, easy to access. It's a simple concept. And for whatever reason, MLB is just like, nah.
Well, they proactively keep people from watching certain games, which it's really hard to believe when you think about that, and it's for antiquated reasons. I mean, a lot of the cable rights things are obsolete. It's just makes no sense. And I won't harp about Iowa because we talked about it before, but 6 teams blacked out in a state of 3 million people. Are you kidding me? So just that kind of stuff. Nevada's worse.
Yeah. Deadly Ninja Bees mentions competitive pillow fighting. I've seen competitive tag on ESPN.
Why was it like compelling too? For like the 15 minutes I watched, I was very into it. I also watched that.
I watch, every now and then they change it to the Ocho, right? And like they'll show like stone skipping competitions. I'm like, well, I'll watch this. That's another thing that's kind of like early days of ESPN. I remember coming home from school and watching like tractor pulls.
Roller derby. They used to have roller derby.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, they've had, what they have right now? Competitive U.S. air guitar, air off.
All right, no, I don't want to watch that.
No. Wow.
No, that's too much.
Is this downriver Michigan? What is going on here?
Well, there's also some dudes invented a game in their driveway where they throw a football on their roof and they try to get it to go around a pole on their roof.
Is it like 500 or something?
It's weird. It's like you get a point for hitting this part and you lose points if it goes over the roof and stuff. But they have like the championships. It's been going on for like 25 years now. I forget the name of it, but you could look it up.
See, I've seen darts on. Okay, so I've seen darts, and darts is like the way the crowd gets into it. Darts in Europe, it is intense. There's and darts is a very competitive game. I'm not gonna call it sport. It's a game. Is that safe to say? But darts, okay, darts have been around for a long time, but pillow fighting, I mean,
I don't know.
I'm okay. I've seen it right now, and okay, wow.
Yeah, the wiffle ball thing was right across the street from my brother's whole house.
Look,
we used to
you may
watch. What's
I
that?
have enjoyed watching wiffle ball quite a bit too, Chris.
Yeah.
I have watched all this stuff. I'm going to be, maybe this is an unpopular opinion. I'm for all of this. I don't care what it is. I love watching people care that much about something so like just niche, like pillow fighting. I'm not saying you should watch it. I'm not saying you should enjoy it. I'm just saying like the fact that it exists, I think is a positive thing. That's all I'm trying to say.
When COVID hit, I spent a lot of time on YouTube watching marble races.
Oh, I remember
Marbles,
those
yeah.
marble races.
Oh,
This is UFC with a freaking cushion in your hand.
I like this. This is sweet.
Oh my god.
Yeah, I mean,
It's a little bit like old. I love the guy with like the Texas Tornado Roundhouse.
yeah, he did it again.
It's a little bit like old American Gladiators with the joust.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Manscaped, is your sponsor. Hey, you know what? Like, I'm not hating on it. I just, like it's
woke boxing.
woke boxing.
I don't know, man. It looks like you get knocked out. That's not.
I mean, but they also have. It's a big thing. I've noticed the people doing the hand slapping. Like that's a thing. Yeah,
that's brutal though. I mean, that's tough.
Stupid. I hate that.
People like you get see somebody slap so hard they like spit blood all over the wall. I'm like, well, it's not great.
Well, I mean, jaw go in slow motion.
I mean, that's what that feels like something you'd like pay cash, gamble on in a basement somewhere in Russia. I'm fine with that. I don't want to watch it on TV.
Oh, like the Deer Hunter, like Christopher.
Yeah, did he bow? Anyway, the Tigers roster projections.
Yeah, let's go in roster projections. But before we go, let's go in roster projections. But before we do, here's the thing too. I will say this: when my son when he was younger, and he came up to me and I'm like, "What are you watching on YouTube?" He's like, "People playing video games." I'm like, "That's a stupid thing. Why are you doing this?" Meanwhile, 10 years later, here I am watching people play competitive Super Punch Out or Punch Out from Nintendo, and I understand why now. Why don't you just play the video game? I get it now. So I'm not you. If you like whatever you like, teach your own. I don't care. It's harmless, fun. If you like pillow fighting, if you like all that, like people watch cornhole tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
That's some really hard. If you ever play cornhole, like just some of the shots they make, it's hard. So anyway, all right.
I used to tell people at the radio station that I was a professional cornhole player because that's pretty much all I did every summer was play cornhole for 12 hours a day outside an outdoor event all day.
You know what though? And the ironic thing now is like you're doing a game all day that you could probably perhaps put on what might be on TV one day.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Mm-hmm.
And bring back jarts.
Yes.
Those were banned, right? Because of skull injuries?
Yeah.
Impalings. Yes.
Yeah. So all right, we're gonna go into our way too early roster projections. I'm gonna start with let's go. You know what? I think we did the pitching rotation. We did the pitching rotation, didn't we, last week?
I don't know. We've talked about a number of times who we thought would be our in our starting five. To me, that like there's three locks, right? This is all, of course, barring injury.
Yes.
The absolute locks are Skubal, Flaherty, and Olsen, right?
Yes.
I mean, I suppose there's a world where Olsen, completely melts down, but I doubt it. And so then it's what, 7 options?
Yeah.
How many do we have? We got Jobe, Herder, Madden, Maeda, Manning, Mize, and Montero. So 7 options. As we said earlier, I feel like they want Jobe to win the job. I feel like he's got the best arm, so he probably will, even if he doesn't necessarily have the best results in spring. After that, I have no idea. Cobb's going to be on the IL for what, a month, maybe more. I could see a world where it's Mize. I could see where it's Maeda. I could see it with Montero even.
See, and that's where I really want Connor Montero because I think Montero has a makeup to be a starter in the major leagues. I really believe that. So if we're gonna you said those locks. So you had Skubal, Flaherty, and Olsen. I'm gonna go Jobe, and then I'm gonna go Montero. That's who I think is going to be the projected starting 5. That's who I think is going to be the starting 5. Maeda is going to be the long man out of the bullpen. That's what I think is going to happen. So that's. Yeah, and as far as the rest of the bullpen though goes, I mean, I think the bullpen's pretty much locked away with Foley, Brisky, Tyler Holden. Vest, Canely,
Canely.
Canely. And then, I mean, does Sean Gunther make the other lefty appearance, or
So I mean, that's I had 6 locks in the bullpen. I don't know if the other guys. I mean, we can kind of fold this all together as it's pitching. You mentioned them all, yeah. You Vest, Brisky, Holton, Foley, Brebbia, and Canely. And so there's two spots left in the bullpen. Do they give those to somebody, nominally a starter who doesn't make the starting 5? That might make more sense. Maybe Matt Manning finally transitions to the bullpen. Maybe they make Herter like a full-time reliever, long reliever. Maybe Mize is in there. The other options are, so like it's Hannafy and Gunther were so big down the stretch. It's like those guys deserve shots, right? The only thing for me, and this is maybe I'm stuck in like 2012 thinking, but Gunther had like a 190 BABIP against him last year and like a 5 strikeouts per 9. And I just feel like that's going to be hard to recreate. And Hannafy was solid. I could see him making it. And then you've got, Tyler Owens has made a little bit of noise in spring. I think he was throwing 98, 99. And the quote was Javi Baez said he looks like Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's Chase Lee is there too. So they have a bunch of different options. And I'm just curious. I don't know. It's hard to figure out if they're going to kind of keep some starters there or just go for pure relief arms.
I think one of those spots goes to a starter. One thing I'm feeling, and I hate to say feeling because I feel like it's a feeling more than my brain, but I'm thinking that 5th spot's going to end up going to Kenta Maeda or Casey Mize, and I don't love that. But as long as it seems like we're all pretty much in agreement that they're not cutting Maeda, like he's going to be on this roster, at least if like that's what I believe. So I feel like ever since Cobb went down, that was my first thought is that means that Maeda is going to be in the rotation. I'm pretty sure they have a couple days off at the beginning of the year that he wouldn't really technically have to pitch for a while. But holy crap, sorry. But I think that's how you see Mize in the bullpen. It's just if he loses that battle to Maeda for whatever reason, if they don't like what they see in spring, and I think that, but I guess I'm just trying to answer your question to say I do think one of those last couple spots is going to end up going to a starter that doesn't make the rotation.
Which is why I think that maybe the reason why I was still my gun to trade possibility is because there's going to be a team out there that's going to ask for starting pitching, and the Tigers have enough depth to do that and give away an arm, or not say give away, pardon me, but trade an arm or two for a right-handed bat or whatever needs they may have. And so it was interesting. Like, so last week, by the way, Chris and I were doing we were talking about the amount of draft. So we did a trivia question in our Discord, and Nick Castellanos is the only Tigers outfielder who have been drafted and brought up in the system that hit 20 home runs.
Right-handed hitting.
Right-handed. Thank you. Right-handed hitting in the last 25 years. And I mean, we're thinking to ourselves, oh, maybe you go back a little ways. Same thing. I think outfielding wise, I can't even remember who it was in the 80s. That wasn't Steve Kemp. It's mind boggling considering that the in right field, left field in Tiger Stadium at the time was like 340, 350 ish. So it wasn't this big thing. And it's one of those things that we're like doing the trivia question instead of going, wow.
I go back to Dan Meyer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's funny. I was doing the worst defenders in Tigers history since 1947, and Dan Meyer pops up on that list. So I don't know. That I think is going to be one of the more fascinating stories in the spring. It's one of those, like, it's a good problem to have. I'm not worried about whatever mix they end up with. I'm just really curious to see who wins out. We had a little bit of this last year, right, where we thought there were kind of 4 pitchers vying for 2 spots, 3 spots.
Yeah.
It was Olsen, Mize, Manning, and or is it just those three? Olsen, Mize, and Manning?
It was just those three.
And Olsen seemed to lock down the spot pretty quickly, and then Mize got the last one, and Manning was down in Toledo, and it was kind of a shock. But yeah, it's like there's going to be a whole bunch. We've talked about there's going to be a legit major league rotation in Toledo, so that's fun. The catching I think is pretty set in stone.
Yeah,
I suppose there's like a 2% chance that Dingler just collapses in spring and they go with Tomas Nito or the Severin guy, but I think Dingler could go like 0 for 100 and they'll just like, we'll put you out there twice a week to catch a good game.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Dingler defensively is superior to anybody else in the camp as far as the other non-roster invites go. And Dingler has a trust and the experience with some of the pitchers in there too as well that he's been playing with in the minors. So I think that goes a long way. And it seems like the Tigers catching wise for the first time in a while to have like it's the same names are Rogers is back. It's a continuation of you, if you will. It's not like just it doesn't seem as
it's the first time in a while that they're not bringing in like a veteran.
Thank you. Yeah.
Backup or starter. Really, I mean, you're going back to the Barnhart, Romine, Ramos trifecta.
So the ability guy.
So the bench wise. So then here's okay. So the question then becomes, who else? The bench is where right now. Well, that's where.
Well, yeah. For me, like I went and I was trying to. I don't know. I only had 7 locks that I found on offense. Really, only 3 in the infield. I figure that Keith is probably a lock since they've had him move to first and they've already extended him, right? Like I feel like it's probably unlikely that he is in Toledo. Torres is obviously a lock. He's got a contract, and Baez I think is a lock because he's got a contract. And after that, I don't know. Like I was like Sweeney might be in Toledo. And then the outfield is pretty set, right? We've got Green, Meadows, and Carpenter, and then I have Veerling as a utility, but he's a lock. I just don't know where, third base or the outfield. And so that's 7. So there's 6 position player spots that are kind of up for grabs to me. And I mentioned earlier, I think both McKinstry and Ibanez are probably making the team. They both got paid in arbitration. I don't know if that necessarily means a lot. Like I feel like at this time last year, JD Davis won his arbitration case and then they got cut and he lost a whole bunch of money. So maybe I don't remember the exact specifics about that, but the Tigers could cut those guys. So I don't know. I've got 4 spots remaining, I think. And it's down to Torkelson, Malloy, Sweeney, Young, and Perez.
For my bench,
just two spots. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Bench guys, I just went with Dingler, Malloy, Ibanez, McKinstry.
Yeah,
and I don't think any of that's too shocking, unless maybe people are shocked about Malloy. But I think it's gonna kind of go chalk unless there's an injury or someone falls on their face. I just think that with options, I love Perez, but I bet he starts in Toledo, and I think Torkelson has that. He has the onus on him to produce, and they're going to make him do it in AAA before he sniffs the majors this year.
Yeah, one of the things I was trying to do to help me was kind of create a lineup versus right-handed pitching and a lineup versus left-handed pitching. In Malloy, it was a small sample last year, but he did really well against left-handed pitching.
Yeah.
And again, it's very like it was like like a 30% strikeout rate, which is not great, but he had like a 155 WRC plus in 65 plate appearances, so it's not crazy, but it was the best on the team. So I could see a scenario if he isn't a complete disaster at first base, where you've got kind of a Keith Malloy platoon at first base, and Malloy becomes kind of your another right-handed bench bat on base guy masher. I wish he had a few more secondary skills. He's not fast. He's not a great defender, but if you need a right-handed bat, he might be a really good one to call on. So I do think that I'd give him the edge right now. I don't know. I think it's going to be a legitimate battle in spring.
And I agree with you. I think Sweeney starts in Toledo as well. I think Baez's last stand, if you want to call it that or whatever. But if he gets through the spring healthy, I think he starts.
Well, I mean, it kind of brings up if Baez becomes an overpaid utility player, you have Verlander, you cut McKinstry. McKinstry survived and survived and survived again, time and time again. You know, what you guys brought up about Spencer Torkelson too. I think Sweeney, here's the thing. The offseason, the Tigers defense somehow got worse in the infield. And that's a kind of concern because if you're putting Cole Keith there at first base, it took him a while before he got really good. Remember last year until I think like mid-May, he was horrible at second base.
Yeah.
And then he got better. So I think Sweeney over McKinstry based off the fact that I think, in terms of defensively speaking, I don't know. Wow. I don't know. He's younger, and I think that his glove is a slightly, I don't know. He's got a better bat. I know I can't talk this evening.
It's just kind of it's kind of two different things though. Like they said that Sweeney and Baez are both working out exclusively at shortstop in spring. They're not trying any other positions at all, which is fine with me. But that's not McKinstry. McKinstry will play everywhere, and I think you could use that. And we've seen Ibanez play. I think I want to say he played all 4 infield positions last year, and maybe even a little outfield. So I think they like that versatility, and yeah, I mean, ideally you'd have. I could also see a situation where it's kind of a Sweeney Baez platoon. You got a Sweeney Baez platoon, and you've got a young Veerling platoon at third, and you've got kind of I don't know if that gives you room for another platoon at first. But I was when I was going through the lineups, my lineup against right-handed pitching is Meadows, Green, Torres, Carpenter, Keith, Veerling, Young, Sweeney, and Rogers/Dingler. That seems vaguely realistic to me. I think Torres is going to play against everybody. I think Green's going to play against everybody, and after that, I don't know. Veerling will probably play against everybody. It was harder to come up with one against left-handed pitching for me, because I have Veerling leading off. I don't know who else. Maybe Ibanez. And then it's Green, Torres, Torker, Malloy, Keith, Baez, Ibanez, Rogers, Dingler, and then Meadows batting ninth. And you've got neither of those lineups have McKinstry in them, but I feel like he's gonna he'll get the spot start in pinch run and pinch hit a lot.
Yeah, he was Ryan Kreidler.
Is there a possibility? I'm just throwing this out there because maybe this is the wrong way to look at it, but I just found that for the first time, I think really in a really, really long time, Tigers, the major league roster is not going to have enough bats for guys that need at bats. Malloy is the biggest casualty of that, because the only reason I disagree with Malloy even making the roster is just simply because we're talking about defensive versatility. And I mean, Chris already touched on this. He is a defensive hole. Just doesn't really have a real position. But the offense is there and the eye is there. So I almost wonder if this might be the year they drop Andy Ibanez. Not saying for Malloy specifically, but I just mean that this is the first year in a couple of years where that a guy like that, I would be, I don't know. There are at bats that we could, that those could be taken by. And I don't think I would be as upset losing one of those two guys. I mean, McKinstry had a great year last year for him. It was his best year as a Tiger. So it'd be weird if they lost him, but I don't know. I've just been thinking about one of those two dudes. Chris, I don't disagree that they're probably locks, but I also feel like, that being said, that would be like the shock cut. I wouldn't be surprised if it was one of those two.
Yeah, I mean, there was a reason I didn't put them in my original group of locks, because it's like, yeah, there's a situation where they get supplanted by somebody else, and maybe that's the best roster. I don't know. It feels like one of Malloy or Torkelson is going to make the team to me. I just don't know which one. And like I said, I was just going with Malloy right now because he did a little bit better against lefties, but we're talking about such small samples that who knows.
I do like what we two said here, that they think they're trade candidates at the trade deadline, and I think that's absolutely correct. I mean, if the Tigers are competing, that they could have the option of get like a guy like, for example, how you least pushing it at Toledo. It makes Abanez expandable. It makes a couple guys expandable that they could trade to maybe a contender or a team like, I don't know, the Marlins, who by the way are in trouble for not spending at least a minimum. They have to spend at least $100 million, and they're at 78.
Yeah, 105, I think it was.
Cheap assholes, man. Imagine being on the Marlins and like you're the only pickup you have this year as a Marlins fan is a catcher you got in the Rule 5 draft from the Tigers.
Yeah, the Pirates even signed Andrew Haney.
Yeah, the Pirates did more than you. Get your ass together.
But
anyway,
I don't know. Yeah, it's. Anyway, this is one of the more intriguing springs that I can remember in a way that we haven't seen in a long time. Where it's like, in years past, we're like, hey, is this Rule 5 guy going to make the roster? And which rando? Nico Goodrum made the team. Like, awesome. Yeah. And now it's like, which deserving guys are just going to have to go to Toledo? And I think there's going to be a handful of them. You're
right. I mean, let's face it. The last few years, it was the dregs of the roster. Who was going to be there on opening day? I mean, really, who cares? Okay, the team's going to win 60 games anyway. And then even back in the period when the Tigers were good, the lineup was pretty much set in stone. I mean, you could go around around the diamond, and you knew who was playing where. So you're looking at the backup catcher fight. Whoop-de-doo, Yeah. But this is the real deal. This is guys playing for a livelihood in spring training and trying to get that upper hand at a lot of different positions, which is kind of fun.
And here's the thing too. Like you have to let. And I like what he said too as well. We too said Torque over Malloy and make sure he proves that he's not expendable. They'll know by the trade deadline if Torque is fixed, but you have to let him prove it. That's true. I mean, Torque is going to be a guy who needs the regular at bats to see if that, the footstep that he's been working on, stepping in the box, is going to work for him. And it could be the case. I'm not going to, we had an asshole in Discord who was trying to say about, you guys rag on Spencer Torkelson. No one's rooting for him to fail at all. No one's rooting for these guys to fail. Nobody is. But if you haven't produced at the major league level, stats speak for themselves. And so that being said, I hope that Spencer Torkelson turns around, because it gives the Tigers another option at power, and gives them power. And so I if it means that he has to get some at bats at Toledo, then get called up, great. Spring train. The thing about spring training is, and this is, we should put a disclaimer on every podcast we do during spring training. Spring training stats do not matter. It is what you see there. It takes a while before pitchers catch up the player, or the pitchers catch up.
Well, I mean,
go ahead,
Mike.
I was just going to say, I'm ready to lose my mind over Hao Yu Lee. Every time he gets even a single, I'm going to be screaming from the rooftops. But go ahead, Chris.
I just think, in spring that what you often see is pitchers just working on their pitches, not even like game planning against hitters, right? Because why would you? So they're just out there trying to get their pitches in, trying to work the quadrants of the zone. And if they give up a bomb, whatever. It's a completely different thing once you get into the regular season and they start attacking your weaknesses. Ask Parker Meadows from last year. So, it's still fun. It's still fun to watch these guys go out there and compete. And we're minor league nerds, so I love it when it's the 8th inning and, there's a top Blue Jays prospect taking on a Tigers prospect, and you get to see a little bit of that on TV. But other than that, you don't learn a whole lot. You just want guys to not get hurt.
So I think obviously we always spend so much time on the opening day roster when it'd be, to me, the questions that rummage through my mind are like, have the Tigers used 20 pitchers by the 4th of July? Or something like that. How much turnover is there going to be as they cycle through at the back of the bullpen, at the back of the rotation, as they're covering up injuries, or as they get good performances down, in Erie and Toledo? How much changeover is there going to be in the staff? And going back to what we said about the hitting, I think there's enough guys around this year where they could really cycle through a lot of folks for a bunch of reasons.
I think it's more or less like what I'm concerned with. The bigger picture right now is the three things that should come out of camp right now. And I have an idea for an article about this. By the way, we We have way too early roster projections on. I just did on Lakeland and West Michigan. What those rosters look like over at TigersMLReport.com. The three things I'm concerned about is, one, does the bullpen have enough swing and miss stuff? So it ties in what you're talking about, Uper. That was a big problem early on last year with the Tigers, and that's still kind of a problem right now that lingers to me a little bit. They need another like sledgehammer back there in the bullpen. Number two, another storyline to consider is I think the whether or not Malloy's getting some reps in the outfield. Is Malloy a guy who can play left field and be serviceable in the outfield? And I say that because that does help him with his position versatility. Because the outfield was something that was still an adjustment for him when he was in Toledo. And lastly, I think the other one too is to me, a spring training that it is what Chris mentioned earlier about Casey Mize. Casey Mize and Matt Manning. I think the Tigers are at an interesting crossroad right now too, in a way, because the Tigers have done. I think the Tigers in the last couple of years have continued to shed the skin of the past, if you will, of the 2018, 2019, the team period of the Tigers drafting and style and the players they've drafted. It's a different mentality altogether. Chris and I were talking about, for example, guys like Justice Bigby, who are kind of I'm not saying this in a bad way, like one dimensional, like they're like really good at like they're the guys that have the way they're drafting players now is there's multiple facets to them. There's intriguing tools and everything. And some of the players from the past were just like one or two things. That was it. And I think that's the philosophy the Tigers are at right now, Casey Mize and Matt Manning. There's just some parts of the past where I think they're still evaluating how that fits in the future, essentially. I know that sounds really cliche to say, but it's just, to me, look at how much the roster's changed in the last 3 years, but then seeing how in the minor leagues, and Connor, thank you. I mean, I think it's just because I'm exhausted and my brain's mush. They used to draft hit tool first, but piss poor defensive skills. All the guys they drafted, I mean, if you look at West Michigan, the roster, some of the guys they projected, for example, Jim Jarvis, Kevin McGonigal down in their infield. Their infield's pretty strong this year defensively. They have some really defensive-minded gloves, but I think the Tigers are at a major crossroad that it's going to continue. Like, this is the year where they're going to shed some of the old ways they had. So.
Question for you guys: you guys saw him last year, Tyler Owens. I know, that as Chris mentioned, he's got his velocities up and he's looking great. Swing and miss guy?
Yes, but not against righties, and that's where he has to do better against righties. I think he's got his fastball's got some good riding action to him. I think he has the ability to make batters swing and miss with his stuff, but at times against lefties, is that where he was just like he was getting hammered a little bit, and he didn't give a lot of home runs, but he just sometimes were a lot of hard contact against them with that, and so, but when he sometimes would leave a pitch over the middle, but I don't know, everything he had on it last year in the Eastern League Championship had movement on it. It's just his command was a little off, but I think the Tigers got the Tigers. This was a scout find there because, I mean, if you look at his numbers in Frisco, the Rough Riders, that's a league. That's a hitter's friendly league, right, Chris? And he was and he was holding him down to under 200 average, which is kind of eye popping if you think about it.
Texas League. I'm sorry.
Texas League, yeah.
I compared him a little bit to that sort of assembly line, or not assembly line, it seemed like for a while the Tigers had all these guys who could throw upper 90s with a slider that would occasionally flash. The Brian Villarreals of the world. They had like a half a dozen of them over like 5 years. He reminds me of that. Like, he'll show you a good slider. It's not terribly consistent. The fastball is pretty consistently good. He started developing a splitter last year, and we've seen some pretty good ones, and that would be that weapon potentially against lefties and maybe against righties too. So he's an intriguing guy. I kind of put him as probably the ceiling of a setup man, but I don't know. It's a good arm, and he is it is an interesting look because he's only like 5'10" and he really steps off the mound. He gets good extension and really it's a low release point. So it's an interesting look. So I think we may see him this year.
Mhm.
It wouldn't shock me at all, but he hasn't pitched in AAA yet. So I think he'll probably be closing in Toledo.
Yeah, Toledo's got a really good bullpen.
Yeah. Now Albuquerque had, he had like an 80 grade slider at times. Like that was stupid. I'm talking about like you guys might not remember these, but it was like Lester Oliveros and
Sure.
Ortega. There was an Ortega in there.
Jose Ortega.
Ortega.
Yeah, Jose Ortega.
They were all these guys that were like 95 to 97 with like a 40 grade slider that would occasionally flash average. Like Ryan Perry, another one. And I think Owens has a chance to be better than those guys, but he just kind of reminds me of that in terms of the consistency of his slider.
Yeah, his fastball, like I said, what I liked about his fastball is it had some really it had some zip to it, and it had some really good downward movement on it. Another reliever I wanted to talk about real quick, if we're gonna talk about a guy that could potentially make his major league debut, and he mentioned him in the chat. I know Connor talked about Tyler Matson a lot, and we talked about by the way, Stan, Torque, we've been talking about that toe tap for a little while now. That was something that we were tipped off about a month ago, that there was something in the cages about that. He's been doing that since the winter, all kinds of stuff. But getting back to the arm that I think that can surprise some people down in the minor leagues that we've kind of forgotten about is Freddie Pacheco. I think Freddie Pacheco, if he's healthy, and he was the guy who they picked up from the Cardinals, who they stashed away after he got injured. If he's back to nearly what he was doing with down in Memphis before he got injured, I think that's a guy that you could see come up at some point too as well. I think he has a little more upside than a guy like, say, Eric Sylvia, who's down in AA, but Sylvia's still relatively young. But Pacheco, I don't know. Like, I love to see what Pacheco does if he's fully healthy, if he's anything that he was with St. Louis.
Yeah, I mean, he's kind of a mystery man. He came back very briefly last year and then disappeared again. And Ricky Vanasco, I think, is still in the organization somewhere too, right? Like, there are some of these other names that are just kind of hanging out. And they brought in Jordan Belizovic and was it Ryan Miller and Dietrich Enns and their Matt Gage. Like, they've brought in some veteran relief type arms that we'll probably end up seeing them at some point this year, just like we saw Sean Gunther and Brendan Hannafy last year. It's hard to figure out which one is going to catch on.
Chase Lee, I think another one could debut.
Yeah. Chase Lee he's an older guy. He's been in AAA. It wouldn't shock me in the slightest if he comes up this year, because it's just a completely different look than anything they have in the bullpen that most teams have in the bullpen.
Yeah.
Oh.
I do like what Kerry Jesus said here. Lang and strikes are not friends, but I mean, if he's healthy, you want to root for a guy like Alex Lang, who, I mean, he had the priest collar and everything. It's cool. Like the way I think there's a lot of, we too's been on fire tonight. He said that he seems like a bit of a head case to me. The underlying hint of false confidence going on with him. I think it's just, if he's healthy, he's healthy, and if he can be nearly what it was before the walks are taking over again. I don't know. There's a lot of intriguing stories, and we'll be covering them more all. Well, I don't know what the hell that was, but things kick off Saturday, 1:00 against the Phillies. Mitchell said he's not quitting on Lang yet. It's just if he's healthy, I don't know what he's capable of right now. In terms of anybody have any idea what the score of the hockey game is right now? It's 2-2. So it's 2-2. Okay, so. Thank you for watching. If you're watching us on YouTube, thank you for listening on a podcast. Speaking of podcasts, by the way, the Tigers Minor League Report podcast we've been dropping all week our top 40 series, and we're dropping the last one tomorrow, 1 through 5. We recorded those originally on YouTube, and then we're just putting them on audio format because we had a couple requests for that. So thank you for watching, and thank you for listening to the shows. We appreciate it. Again, if you want to donate, there's the GoFundMe link that is available on our social media or PayPal or wherever you like. If not, just continue to enjoy the content. We also have our Patreon. Thank you. Oh, by the way, I should mention, thank you for everybody who signed up to our Patreon. We had a nice spike of people who signed up for free and for paid tiers. and we've been trying to get some content over there. So tomorrow is 5 things you like from 5 things we like from this week from Joe, and we have
we'll have a little bit of mailbag coming out soon.
Yeah, we'll have a mailbag
with questions about like who are some guys we could see breaking out this year, who are the other rookies we might see this year, things like that. So
yeah, and Mitchell, I know you're watching right now. Get a hold of me because I did want to talk some prospects with you. You were talking about doing some writing this year. Get a hold of me. We have Ashley is going to be with us next week from Arizona. I think it's going to be next week or the week after. She'll be with us again.
Cool.
Just talked to her earlier, and she's prepping for that. So Spencer Turnbull still free agent. Stan, I think he will stay a free agent for a while, and that's because there is just a reputation that precedes him. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. So we'll see you next week. Forgot to mention, we're gonna have a special. Chris and I are going to do a podcast tomorrow night with Dan Skrabowski from Fangraphs. So we'll be talking Zips tomorrow. So that's going to be a special edition. So that's going to be dropping. We're not doing that show live. We'll be recording that, and we'll have that out for you on the weekend. So stay classy, everybody. Have a good night and stay safe.